Welcome back, everybody, to the Birdies and Bourbon Show. This is going to be a fun night. We've got Alex Castle from Old Dominic Distilling on with us, and we're going to get a little history on Old Dominic. I'm not sure who's drinking it right now. I think you got a pretty good distribution range out there as far as states go. And I don't know if you're familiar with Alex or not, but I hope I don't screw this up, Alex. But it's the first female head distiller. Is that right?
Yes.
In Tennessee.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So Alex and Zoe were kind enough, and Old Dominic were kind enough to share some samples with us. So we're going to go, and maybe I won't steal any thunder. I'll let you maybe tell us what we're going to sample in just a second, or we may want to talk about that first so we can get to drinking, and then we can get the backstory. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that. I think it always helps to have a little bit of whiskey flowing. So I would recommend starting with our wheat whiskey first.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So wheat whiskeys just tend to be a much lighter flavor profile. And it is also lower proof in our portfolio. So it's just a good one to start with. If you start with one of the higher proof ones, you're likely to not really be able to taste this whiskey. So
okay, yeah. So typically, I don't. Well, let me rephrase. If it's something I haven't tried, typically I don't try before I get a chance to get on and talk with whoever's coming on. Right? I want to get the. I'd rather get the story from the person that's making it and kind of walk me through what's that tasting experience like. Let's see. The bourbon snob actually kind of turned me onto this, and I was looking for, or maybe I posted something about a Weller and he's like, "Hey, stop chasing. Try this wheated whiskey." So I forget if he sent me a sample or if I just went and bought it. Either way, I think he sent a sample, and I tried it, and I'm like, "Holy shit, this is this is good stuff." So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's the word is spreading. So enough about that. So I'm gonna I'm gonna smell on this a little bit, but let's hear the Alex Castle story. I mean, we got a lot to get into in our hour. I got lots of questions, and I'm very curious about why Alex wanted to make whiskey.
Yeah. So I am Kentucky born and raised. But there's no distilling history in my family, so I really can't say it's in my blood other than just growing up in the bourbon state. Mm-hmm. But I also do remember when I wasn't even 10 years old yet when my parents decided it was appropriate to take us to Maker's Mark for a tour. No idea, because my parents didn't drink bourbon, so I really don't know why they wanted to take us there. And I didn't like it. I thought it stunk. And the piece of chocolate that they gave me at the end of the tour was very disappointing because it wasn't chocolate. It was bourbon fudge. And I thought it was so gross. So that was my first foray into the bourbon world, and it was not good. But in high school, I had a little midlife crisis, decided that the marine biology path that I had been going down for years wasn't going to work out because I hated biology. I just hadn't been exposed to it until then. And so I panicked, didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and discovered chemistry, discovered physics and calculus, and loved it. And so talking to my mom, she said, you can study chemical engineering. That covers all those subjects.
Sure.
Okay, that's fine. But what do you do with it? I don't have the mentality to be a teacher, so that's not an option. So what do you do with this degree? And again, my mom doesn't really drink. First thing she said was, you can be a brewmaster and make beer, or you can be a master distiller and make bourbon.
Great guidance from a parent, right?
I know. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing. And I, to this day, really still don't know what it was about it that actually intrigued me, because I was 14, 15. So it's not like I loved bourbon at the time. But it sounded amazing. And so that's just kind of where I started. And then it was in college. I did a co-op with Alltech in Lexington, Kentucky.
Sure.
That at the time only had Kentucky ale. They didn't have Town Branch bourbon. And And so I got to help out on bottling days and get to be soaked in beer every other Friday and loved it. Absolutely loved it. But was there when they installed the 2 pot stills. And the distillery looked very, very different than it does today. But I got to start the distillery. They didn't have anyone. And so they let me spend 2 weeks with a retired distiller from Scotland. Taught me everything he knew about the industry. And it was during that time that I realized I couldn't brew beer. It wasn't going to be enough. I needed that distillation. So it was during that time I fell in love with spirits production and knew that was it for me. That's all I could do.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, was it interesting point? So because I mean, essentially in the whiskey making process, you get to a point and you've actually made beer,
Yep.
right? And but that wasn't a stopping point for you. You wanted to see it kind of move forward and what comes next, right?
Yep. Yeah, there was something about the distillation process that just intrigued me so much more. Plus, there's a lot less sanitizing needed for distilling versus brewing beer.
Nice.
Self-sanitizing in a sense, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this we did again. I cheated a little, and I've had it prior to. I haven't had this particular the sample that you sent me, but it's just a great that honey fresh, almost like fresh cut grass kind of on the nose.
I get a lot of grass. I get a lot of hay as well on the nose and the palate. And that's one of my favorite things about it is that hay characteristic. There's just something about that that I love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a dangerous bottle. What 90 proof, I think, right?
Yeah. We ended up doing 90 proof with it. That just kind of seemed to be the sweet spot to give you enough oomph so it didn't taste watered down, but also allowed those notes to really come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, enough oomph that it's like, boy, that goes down easy, and then a few glasses in, it's like, whoa, I'm starting to feel that oomph, right?
Yep.
So I want to get into something. So just transparency. So I'm originally a Tennessee guy from the complete other end of the state. I'm from the Tri-Cities area,
Okay.
but so and just growing up in Tennessee, right? I mean, you got kind of the two big name distilleries, if you will, right, in the central part of Tennessee. And in looking at what's hulling station all about, and I want to get to the hulling station part in a minute, but I didn't see anything about the Lincoln County process with your current expressions. And for folks that don't know, you may want to give a little backstory, kind of the 30-second high level. And are you doing that today, or is that something that's coming in the future?
Yeah. So the reason you don't really see it is because on any of our marketing materials, because we don't have a product out right now that utilizes it. Our entire whiskey lineup, the Huling Station line, was produced in Indiana. We're very, very upfront about that. It was produced at MGP. But we do make whiskey in Memphis, and we do 3 different mash bills, one of which is our Tennessee whiskey. And it does utilize the Lincoln County process. You can't be a Tennessee distillery and be a whiskey distillery and not do that. So that is coming. Hopefully it should be in 2022. And so we'll update all of our material to really, really promote the fact that we do everything you're supposed to do to be a Tennessee whiskey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because you're I guess you're either the first stop or the last stop on the Tennessee Whiskey Trail, right?
However you want to look at it, we are definitely at the end of it. One of the ends.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this wheat expression is just, it's really good. And number 2, so thank you for being transparent about mash bills, about what's happening with it. I mean, that, again, I think you can probably, if you've been drinking for a while, you can probably get a bottle if it's, if people, oh, I don't want to tell you what it is. It's a secret kind of thing. I guess you can, you can kind of get to where I'm pretty sure I know what this is. And I don't understand the lack of transparency in some of those cases. That's for a different topic. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think people.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know what I'm drinking. I want to know how old it is. I want to know what's in it. And for no other reason than, well, if I like that, well, what can I now go and compare it to buy something, maybe that's like it. And if I don't know what it is, well, I'm kind of in the dark, right? I'm kind of reaching for different bottles. And it's almost I would look at it from the aspect of, well, okay, I'm kind of randomly guessing. And if I've randomly guessed wrong 2 or 3 times, well, did the hunt that I went on, the whatever originated that hunt, did that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth? And it's like, well, I'm going to go a different direction because I can't find anything similar or like that. So, yeah, I think there's benefits. I think the benefits far outweigh the cons on being transparent.
I've never understood a negative associated with being upfront with where the whiskey comes from. And also the consumer in the last, call it 10 years, consumer has become so well educated. Whether you see that as good or bad, they have become so well educated that people now know how to read a label. They know that if it says Kentucky on the front label, that it's going to come from a Kentucky distillery, and odds are you probably can narrow it down. If it doesn't have a state on the front, the consumer now knows to flip that bottle over. And they're going to find that distilled in statement. And it's going to tell you it came from Indiana.
Sure.
If it says from Indiana, there's like
where it came from.
There's like a 95% chance that it came from one distillery. So
that's right.
Instead of hiding, they're going to figure it out. So you know what? Just own it.
Yeah. Why make your customer work for something instead of enjoying what they're getting? Right. I mean, that's
100%.
That's the takeaway.
Well, and then I think they just they start to question the person that put the product out. Well, why weren't you upfront about it? Why weren't you honest? So suddenly they're so distracted in trying to figure out your motives that you kind of put a really bad taste in their mouth for your brand, even if they love the product. Sure. I feel like they're starting to judge your brand, and that's just it's unnecessary.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it definitely clouds the conversation, right? I mean, instead of talking about how good it is and what we like about it, it's that the conversation is about where's it from and what is it. It's not really focused on what's in the glass. It's focusing on what made what's in the glass, which is kind of a disconnect to the outcome I would think that you're looking for, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we said a few things there, and I'm going to go back a little bit to you talked about opening up a distillery, right? Kind of first shot. We're starting this thing from the ground up. You got to work with an experienced guy from Scotland, and then you kind of move on through your career. And if I'm skipping anything, it's your show, so you can always backtrack on me. But so we're there, and then you're moving on to, so you go from a startup, right? Distillery, and now you're moving into a mature, one of the big fives, right?
Yep.
And that's, I'd like to know a little bit about what's that experience. And then did you take anything away? I'm going to give it's a giveaway, but do you have a Russell's imprint that was left on you? And does that kind of feed through anything that we're going into tonight?
Okay. So what was it like for one of the big fives? It was overwhelming and stressful because I came on board. I'm losing track of my years. I feel so old at this point. It would have been 2011. And so they had just commissioned their brand new facility. It had only been, I think it had been running for less than a year at that point. So still, honestly, with a facility that big, still working out the kinks.
Sure.
Especially because it was almost 100% automated. So they were still working out programming kinks, all this kind of stuff. And I came on as one of 2 production supervisors. The other one actually was one that helped commission the facility. And within 2 months of me starting, he got moved to a different department. So suddenly I was the only supervisor, along with my manager, for a 24-hour, 6-day-a-week operation. And I was brand new. So it was a little overwhelming. And it was stressful because Wild Turkey has a wonderful reputation. Now, I'm sure at one point people didn't think as highly about it, but it's a well-respected bourbon, has a great reputation for quality and all of that. And so I essentially was tasked with making sure we maintained that from a distillate perspective. And so there was kind of a lot of pressure to understand that and know what you were doing. But at the same time, it was phenomenal to be there to help work out the startup of this facility. Even bring on there were new parts of production that still hadn't even been brought online when I started. So to be able to help get that stuff commissioned, I really learned how to run a huge facility, and it was amazing. It was a phenomenal 4 years. Because it's part of a bigger family of Campari. So there's Sky Vodka, there was Cabo Wabo tequila and Espolòn tequila and all of these other products. And I actually got to kind of be exposed to all of those products. So I got to be part of product development tastings for, I don't even know how many different Sky Vodka flavors. Because especially at the time, because I was in my 20s, I was their target consumer for flavored vodka. So, and I was one of the only young female on the team. So I was always being asked to try the products.
I mean, there could be worse things.
Absolutely. So I got to be exposed to that. I got to spend a week with a team from the Espolòn tequila facility in Mexico. They came up. And so I spent weeks learning about the tequila production, which it was phenomenal. I never would have been exposed to that. So it was an amazing experience, but there was a huge learning curve in those first couple months. But I loved every moment of it. And as far as any like Russell imprints, well, first, my favorite thing about working with Jimmy is just his stories. He has a story for everything, and he really never stops telling stories. So I just getting to have him sit in the control room and just tell stories for an hour or two was really fun. But honest, I think my time there showed me that I do like the number 4 char. That was, Jimmy loves number 4 char, the alligator char. I definitely took that away with me because that is my favorite char. And so things like that, but, for the most part, I was more focused on the full production of it. So, and not the aging. And that's where Jimmy and Eddie spent most of their time. So.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, and I see I think everything that you release, right, from a bourbon or whiskey standpoint is number 4 char.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Okay. So what are we moving to next as we continue to talk?
We'll do the straight bourbon. So that's the red label that we have. And so this is, we like to call it a high rye bourbon because it's 52% corn and 44% rye. So it toes the line of being a rye whiskey. And we do bottle this at 100 proof. I got to that proof because I'm a cocktail drinker, but I like to taste my whiskey in my cocktail.
Nice.
And so the higher the proof, the more it will stand up to any ingredient you put with it. And also my husband loves whiskey on the rocks. So again, you start with that higher proof, you can do a cube, let it melt, and you're still
make its own cocktail, right?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. This is like almost cherry vanilla Coke kind of.
So all of our whiskeys right now are super small batch. They're only 6 barrels a batch. So they are going to all vary from batch to batch. But yes, our bourbon, for whatever reason, it gets a lot of cherry notes.
Yeah.
I sometimes get dark chocolate too, which is great when you get cherry and dark chocolate.
Yeah, who doesn't like chocolate covered cherries, right? Even on the wheat, I haven't tasted this yet, but I'm still picking up, and maybe I'm not getting like the Coke or the soda. Maybe I'm getting smoke instead of that, like maybe a smoked vanilla, which it's because this is 100 proof, I think. So
yeah.
And everything's 4 years, right? Give or take.
Actually, what we have right now is just shy of 7 years.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So starting this year, we're going to start blending in some younger vintages with it, but everything will be a minimum of 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is amazing.
Very good. Yeah. Amazing for sure.
Again, slightly dangerous because it's smooth and
Yeah. I mean, there's no, so that's the first two expressions that we've had. I mean, even when you get to the single barrel at 114, some of this stuff, you get kind of that, that raspy bite on the back end, and you get none of that out of this, right? I mean, you do get, I get a little bit of kind of that peppery spice on the back of this a little, but I don't get it. It's not that alcohol, there's no burn to this thing. I mean, it just, it's like welcoming. It's like, give me more. So these first two, so we taste the wheated and the straight bourbon. So was there any, did you let me hold on. So we went from a startup, and then we've gone to a mature distillery, and here we are. You get a job offer, you get a call. You can talk through that or not. That's up to you. But ultimately, you make the decision, and you elect to go to Old Dominic, and that's the transition, right? I mean, now we're at third, and we're at home. So you make the decision to go there, and when it's a startup again. Right. And I, and in a different side of life for me, and on the business side, a lot of people are really all about startups, but most of the time it's like, hey, I want to get this thing started. I want to get it up and running. And once it's ready and it's done, I'm out of here. Right. I mean, I'm all about I like that kind of that instant gratification of let me build it. Let's get it going. And then I'm moving on to another startup. And, you've seen both sides now. And now here we are in Memphis. And we're back to startup and doing a hell of a job, by the way. We'll talk about labels and stuff like that in a minute. And what's in the glass is fantastic. But so, what's the Alex mindset of, yep, I'm ready to go build another distillery?
I am definitely not someone who just wants to do nothing but startups. To be honest, when I was at Wild Turkey, I thought I was done. I thought that was my dream job, and I would just work moving up the ladder. I had no intention of going to a startup or anything like that, and just happened to get a message on LinkedIn asking me if I knew of anyone who would be interested in moving to Memphis to help start up a distillery. And it was just, for some reason, the prospect at that time lit something in me that I was like, oh, okay, maybe I am ready to move on. Maybe I am ready for a change, even if just for a couple of years, and then go back to Wild Turkey or something. Sure. To where it's been 5 years now. Phenomenal, but I do not want to have to do this again. It's been a very, very crazy, very long 5 years. And my whiskeys aren't even out yet. So to me, I am not going anywhere until those are out, because I have worked way too hard on those. Sure. That I want to be there when we finally release them. But yeah, no, it's been wonderful doing the startup, but I'm, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in it for the long haul with Old Dominic. I've been part of pretty much every aspect of developing the brand itself. The logos, the labels. I was part of the interior design conversations for the distillery itself. So while it's not my distillery, I feel like I have been a part of every aspect of it for so long that it is my distillery.
Well, you've left your imprint now. I mean, the question that I just asked about the Russells and Wild Turkey, I mean, you've now had an opportunity to do that on your own, right? So it's, somebody's going to eventually, right? You're good. If it's retirement or whatever it is, somebody else is going to step in, and somebody's going to be asking that same question of, what'd she leave you, right? I mean, and what'd you get? Yeah, that's going to be that's an awesome story. I love that. So when you came in, right, it's like, hey, we're gonna fire up, and we'll talk a little about the history, or I'll ask you to talk a little about the history, and why is it Old Dominic? Where did Huling Station come from? If you're not from Memphis, you may not know that. But when you accepted and you said, hey, and by the way, I guess LinkedIn does work. So there's some benefit there, right? So when you came in, and I'm sure there were, and I've heard a few of your conversations, I mean, they definitely kind of gave you the grand tour of Memphis, et cetera. But did you go in with the mindset of like, I'm going to help you build our distillery, or was it I'm coming in to make whiskey?
A little bit of both. I definitely didn't expect actually to be as involved in all aspects of the build out. I didn't realize I was going to help pick out stuff for the tours and whatnot. It was more of, I just thought I would do production. I would help finalize all the equipment and do the installation commission, and then do the liquid development of products. Everything else was completely unexpected to me, but a bonus. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing the labels, and like our gin, that label was me and our creative director. Just, what does your gin label look like? And that's what we have. So it was unexpected to be so involved, but it has worked out perfectly for me.
Nice.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's, do you have so is there limited distribution of specific products at retail?
To an extent, yes. So like the wheat that we just tried, we only have so much wheat that we produced in our first production run at MGP. And then we, for whatever reason, waited a couple years before we did another one. So we have to make those barrels last until the next one comes of age. And so our wheat and then the next one, the blend, are going to be somewhat limited. So we have not released them in all markets because of the limited volume. Mm-hmm. The single barrel, we just started the single barrel selection program in 2020. And so that was heavily focused on Memphis for the first part of the year. And then we finally hit a couple other markets at the end of the year. So we definitely have not seen the single barrel hit all of our markets. We're working on changing that this year, but it's definitely been limited. And then the other products just kind of depend. We're about to do toddy. Well, does toddy work in Florida like it would in a cold state? Right. Things like that. So it kind of depends. But for the most part, our core products, red label bourbon, our vodka, our gin, I'm pretty sure they are. If we're in a market, you can get those products.
Cool. I'll have to look for the gin because I'm in Atlanta and I can.
Oh, you have it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, maybe it was just the store didn't have it or it was sold. I don't know, but I didn't see it when I was the past couple times I've been in. But I'll have to check and see. If I'm not drinking, brown spirits, I'm definitely going for a Negroni. So we got to have a vermouth. I've written it down. We got to have a vermouth conversation before we get out of this. So hold on. So we got to give the distillery its due. So if you want to share like a snippet of the Old Dominic story, it's all over the website. You can definitely, you can get into more and more detail. But why, what's the Old Dominic story, if you will, and then the Huling Station?
Yeah. So Old Dominic was a whiskey brand founded back in 1866 by the founder of our parent company. The parent company is Deacon and Company, and the founder is Dominick Canale. So when he decided to do whiskey, he did what a lot of people did at the time and just named it after himself. And so he called it Old Dominic. And unfortunately, Prohibition happened. So the brand went away just like so many others did. And Dominico passed away before repeal. And so our main champion for the brand just wasn't there anymore. And so the company didn't bother to bring back the whiskey after repeal. Fortunately for us, the business continued nonstop through all of this, just with other business ventures. And in 2013, our current president, who is the great grandson of Dominico, decided to bring back the Old Dominic brand and decided to do it with an actual distillery. Dominico never distilled anything. He just bought barrels and brought them down to Memphis and bottled them. Mm-hmm. And so our current president decided it was time for him to create his legacy. It was time to bring Old Dominic back in a really big way. And so that's when they decided to build a distillery in downtown Memphis with the line of whiskeys And we opened the doors in 2017, filled our first barrel in 2017, and we'll actually release our first whiskey in 2022. And we were the first whiskey distillery in Memphis since Prohibition.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So lots of law changes, and was there restrictions and limitations, I guess?
Yeah, in Tennessee as a whole, you weren't allowed to have a distillery outside of 3 counties. You can guess what distilleries those were shaped around: George, Dickel, Jack Daniels, and Pritchard's.
Yep.
And so no one apparently cared to change that law until 2009. And so finally they got it changed where every county in the state allowed distilling. And so that kind of also helped spark the interest in doing a distillery in Memphis. But other than that, why we didn't have, distilleries, because we don't even have record of a whiskey distillery in Memphis before Prohibition.
Oh, wow.
Not to say there wasn't one. We haven't found anything.
Not a legal one, right?
Exactly. So that's how we got to today. And Huling Station is actually our way to pay homage to Dominico. The history of Deacon Alley is pretty much all almost on one street in downtown Memphis. His uncle's business is diagonal to today's distillery. I mean, you can see it from our front door. Go down the street a little ways and you get to a building on Huling Street. And the building at the time was called Huling Station. And that is actually where Dominico bottled Old Dominic whiskey before Prohibition.
Oh, nice.
And so
cool.
We wanted to name it that. And if you ever look at the front label of either the bourbon, the wheat, or the blend, not single barrel, that black label made this design impossible. If you look at the front of the label, you'll see a dark building behind the words Huling Station. That is Huling Station.
Oh, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I've drank the other 2 bottles I have. Just so you know, I got a lot of bottles, and those went pretty quick. So, and there's I don't know if it's a rooster or a chicken. I guess it's a rooster.
It's a rooster. It's a rooster. So, part of what also started the revitalization of the brand was they found a bottle of what was called Dominick Toddy, and it was still sealed. It was still had wax on, still had liquid in it. And on that bottle were 2 little chickens. And someone who wasn't even working for the company saw the bottle, saw the label, and pointed at it and said, well, those are Dominicker roosters. No one on our team they're not farmers. They don't have a clue about chicken breeds. So they had no idea. And this guy points out that they're Dominicker roosters. And so they start researching these roosters, and I believe it's the oldest breed of chicken in America. They're super hardy, and it was one of those things like, now we understand why there are chickens on this label. It wasn't on accident. They did it intentionally because of Dominic.
Oh, sure.
And so we decided everyone needs a mascot. So we had to keep the rooster around. So we gave him a makeover, made him look a little cooler than he did on the original labels. And his name is Nico.
Nico.
Oh, okay. Nico.
Yeah. Or, hey, he could have been a Waylon Jennings fan because he sings about a lot of Dominic or hens. So that's way before the time. So no, I'm with you that it's it's Dominico. Yeah. I mean, I think the bottles. So did you have anything to do with the design of the bottle to go square versus traditional round? I mean,
I was definitely part of those conversations. I think I blocked most of those conversations from my memory at this point. Because you have to think, by the time we were ready to look at Huling Station, we had designed the 2 vodkas, we had designed the toddy, had even sort of ventured down the road of designing our estate produced whiskeys. So there was a lot going on. And then we finally had to get to Huling Station. And it was like, what do we do with this? And we wanted something that was different. We wanted it to stand out. Mm-hmm. And we had kind of determined that we liked the clean the clean lines. And up to that point, with the exception of the toddy, our bottles had that flat shoulder.
Right.
And we kind of wanted that to be our thing.
Cool.
Sure.
And so we also narrowed our search to bottles that had that flat, sharp shoulder, and ended up settling on that bottle that weighs, I think, like 6 pounds. something absurd.
Well, if it slips out of your hands, it's probably not going to break on the first drop.
It does not break. It does not. I can tell you.
I think you have to make an effort to make it break. Let me put it that way.
You do. I don't know how many of those I've seen fall, like from a bottling line or someone. I have never once seen one break.
Nice. That's funny.
Let's see. All right, so we've gone. We hit wheat. We've hit straight. I'm thinking we're going to go for the blend of straights, right?
Yep. So the blend of straight whiskeys came about because I would actually get samples from the wheat barrels and the bourbon barrels from MGP. And I would be in the lab and taste through them. And it would be like 3 barrels worth of each. So I had 6 glasses that I was tasting through. Well, I didn't want to waste the whiskey, so I didn't want to dump it down the drain. But I also didn't want to carry 6 glasses back to my office because people stare at you funny. And so I started combining them into one glass and realized I liked the flavor. And managed to convince my team that it, was a smart move to actually make this a product. And so through various taste tests, we determined that a 50-50 blend of the bourbon and the wheat was the way to go. And then again, 100 proof, we seem to like our 100 proof on most of our whiskeys. And again,
get your money's worth, eh?
Yeah. And that proof just seemed to allow all of the right aromas, all the right flavors to really just come out and meld together.
Yeah, now that you mention, so I haven't had this one before, so I don't know. Is this, can I buy this in the store, you think?
Yes.
Should be able to? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
But it's exactly as you described. I mean, it's that kind of that honey, you get a little bit of oak on it, but then it's, still get I'm actually just pouring another little taste of these two because, no shit. It's just like you blended these two together it's exactly that, which is fantastic. Yeah, it's really nice.
And with this, I was hoping, because wheat whiskey to me is it's an introductory whiskey. If you find bourbon too bold, too intimidating, you should be able to try wheat whiskey and kind of get your palate more acclimated to whiskeys. Mm-hmm. And to me, this blend kind of almost takes you one step further. So you're comfortable with wheat whiskey. Now let's inch you towards bourbon. And so let's give you this product that has all those great things about wheat, but kind of kicks it up a notch and gets it a little closer to the bourbon world.
Yeah, it's almost like the wheat's kind of put this in. It's kind of toned down. To me, it's kind of muted the vanilla. Well, I shouldn't say muted. It's almost kind of elevated the vanilla into a cake battery kind of, or maybe the spices in there. It's like a combination. I'm not getting a single, just a single expression out of this. I mean, it's really, this is a beautiful whiskey.
Yeah, this one's fun because the higher proof also means it's really fun in cocktails. You can do a couple fun things with it.
What's your favorite to make?
One, I'm a lazy bartender, so I don't make it. My go-to, especially if it's a new bar, I judge a bar based on an old fashioned.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So if it's the first time I'm going somewhere and it's not just, a place that you get Miller Lite at or whatever, I will test them by getting their old fashioned. And I will judge them based on how their old fashioned is. But I love Manhattans. I really like the classics, but I also really enjoy going somewhere, sitting down to, a special cocktail menu with off the wall concepts.
The 12-step cocktail or 12-touch cocktail.
Yes, the things I absolutely will never make myself. But, if they're able to really balance the flavors and you still taste your spirit, I'll drink just about any cocktail you put in front of me.
That's why she's on the show, Cal.
Spoken like a professional.
So do you have a favorite that you've been to somewhere in the US for a Manhattan that does one stand out?
I always liked at Bluegrass Tavern in Lexington. That was kind of our go-to place when we lived in Lexington. But I also really, and it's not because it's the best Manhattan ever, but I really enjoy getting Manhattan at the Peabody Hotel.
Okay, cool.
Here in Memphis. It's the overall experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a good Manhattan. It's solid. Nothing fancy. Just
when those ducks come by, I mean, it's like, how can you be like, damn, this is fun. This is fun.
Exactly. It's the whole thing.
Nice.
So you hit on cocktails a little bit. So, and I was checking out. So there's something unique about your, maybe not distillery, but the bar and the setup that you have to do everything in house. So you go to you opened up a distillery, you go to a mature distillery, and you got you ventured into some different spirits at Turkey. And now you're coming into what I would say a whiskey distillery, right? Even though you're making some other clear spirits. And now you got to start making other stuff.
Yeah. So a couple years ago in Tennessee, a law was passed that allowed distilleries to serve cocktails, do liquor by the drink. Sounds great. Kentucky had just passed something very similar, but Tennessee likes to make things a little bit more difficult and said that in order to put alcohol in that drink, every drop of that alcohol has to be produced on site.
Wow.
So you can't just go and buy someone else's absinthe to make a Sazerac. You have to make your absinthe. And my boss had the president of the company has this, vision in his mind that we will be a bar, like a real bar, real fancy cocktail bar, which means we need all those things. Right. And so we start the process of trying to figure out what that even means. And someone wrote up a list of the various spirits that they would like behind the bar in order to make every cocktail. This is what you need to make. I didn't even recognize one of the products on the list. I had never heard of it, let alone tasted it. But I took my list to one of the liquor stores in town, got a shopping cart, and just started loading it up with all of these different products because I never sat down and tasted most of them on their own. I'd had Fernet, yes, I'd had Campari, but I think I'd had one absinthe on its own. That's it.
Well, and number two, why would you?
Yeah, exactly. An orange carousel. Who sits and just drinks orange carousel? You don't.
I don't know that. I don't want to call people weird, but that's a little. It's unique if you're doing that.
Yeah, and so I had to go buy all of these things and just sit there and taste them, try to figure out what the heck was even in them. And there were a lot of Google searches to figure out what most people said were in these products. And we needed to try and make Campari. Well, Campari, I actually got to tour their facility in Italy. I know that was it 20 or 30 different botanicals, I think.
Right.
And there's not one single person alive who knows the full recipe. They split it up. They have people weigh different botanicals. It's very isolated. So you can't find a recipe for it. So there was a lot of just guessing on it and a lot of trial and error. But yeah, so in-house, strictly for the distillery, we make absinthe, aquavit. We have just a very traditional Amaro, a Fernet, orange carousel, and then a bitter, what we call bitter orange, and it's our version of Campari.
And was that a learning curve? Kind of. I mean, you just explained that it was. What is it? Is it completely different from what you were doing, or it was just a new experience?
For me, it was completely different because it took such an understanding of the botanicals.
I got you.
And the flavors that they did, and how taking one particular ingredient and macerating it, so just letting it soak in the liquid, produce a very different flavor profile than distillation. And so trying to figure out to create that product, which one are you doing? Are you doing maceration or are you doing distillation, or is it a combination thereof? And I'm not a cook. I am terrible with that kind of stuff. And so for me, it was very interesting taking things like cumin and figuring out how to use it, what quantity to use it in. Like there were some Aquavit uses cumin as well as caraway. You don't use those in whiskey production at all. And so I had no clue what I was doing when I got into that product. And I can tell you those first couple batches were horrible. They were just nothing but fennel, nothing but caraway, like just awful, because I had no idea how strong those flavors were going to come out in the end until I did it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't actually heard that. And I mean, I don't know if it happens elsewhere. I mean, people are dabbling in kind of different things, but typically, if you're going down that road, right, I'm a winemaker, right, and I'm kind of venturing off into some of these things. But to go from whiskey to the absinthe and the other things, I mean, that's not too far off base, right? But when you start going down a road of if you want to call it an aperitif or a cordial, or whichever direction you want to go, I mean that's that's a little bit foreign, very distant cousins, to say the least, right? So what about vermouth? You're making some vermouths, and are you a fan, or are you making them just out of necessity?
Well, so right now we're not actually even making vermouth because I have not successfully figured out how to do it. So the issue we run into is vermouth is wine-based.
Yep.
So there are legalities around a distillery acquiring wine. So there's that hurdle. Well, most people sell wine by the barrel. If you use vermouth, you know that you don't use a lot of vermouth at one time.
Right.
Which means I'm not going to use a lot of wine at one time. So what am I going to do with a barrel of wine? So you also have that issue. Like I don't need that much. And then typically with vermouth, you also have a fortifying spirit.
Yep.
So it's very typically brandy. I don't make brandy.
All right. So no vermouth yet.
So what's my fortifying agent? We had a barrel of rusted vodka at one point. Long story on that one, but we actually tried to use it as a fortifying agent for a test batch of vermouth, and it didn't work because it just didn't have the flavor and the viscosity that brandy brings to the final product. Yeah,
I mean, the cocktail, it probably just broke down in the cocktail and you just lost it completely, right? I mean, you added maybe alcohol to it, but you didn't get anything other than,
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm still working on vermouth. I'm not there yet.
Well, if you get something and you want a taster, I would love to. I mean, if anytime I'm in Italy, that's my first thing. It's like give me a coffee and a vermouth, right? So.
Not many people drink vermouth on its own.
Yeah, well, now that is one that I can actually do. All right, so we're moving to the single barrel, which is I don't know. I'm going to talk about what's your favorite in a minute, and I'll share. And I know it's different time. You can't. It's like, what's my favorite today or my favorite right now, right? I mean, there's not a favorite, but I guess I'll have some questions once we get through this about kind of why you made what you made, even though you've shared. So walk us through the single barrel if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the single barrel is the same product as that straight bourbon, the red label. Just instead of 6 barrels, it is literally just 1 barrel. And this one, this product goes in the barrel at 120, so that's how we're hitting like 114 proof, which is pretty much what we've been averaging here lately. Has been in the 114 to 116 range. And when I evaluate a single barrel, I try to come up with different barrels. I try not to just be like, oh, I only like, toffee and chocolate, so those are the ones I'm going to qualify. I try to come up with really different ones. So occasionally I try to get super oaky or super cherry or But also I look for complexity. I don't like one note single barrels. If it is just a cherry bomb, to me, that's just not enough. Use that in a blend to enhance others.
So I'm still getting just that. I mean, that honey profile that you guys have on that, just on every approach to this, and it's not. I'm not getting that kind of that maple syrup. I mean, I'm actually getting like honey. Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, it's kind of light golden. I don't know. I'm picking up a little bit of cherry, but I'm kind of getting some cherry oaky. I kind of get a little bit of cedary kind of smoke. Maybe I guess you could call it a cigar boxy kind of note on there.
Typically on the bourbon, I always get like cinnamon and cinnamon candy on a lot of them.
What's the little bitty, so you go to the theater and you get the little bit, not the theater, you get them at the store, like the tiny little candied cinnamons, not the cinnamon disc, but the really small little round ones.
Yep.
I can definitely get that.
It's gonna bug me because I can't think of what that candy's called.
I know, you know what I'm talking about. They're like the super tiny little, there's like, there's Red Hots and there's the little, the tamale things. That's not it. It's the little bitty tiny chewy things that are.
Yep. This one finishes really dry for me. It's a really dry finish.
You know, I kind of get heat like in like mid swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the finish, I'd say it's a little short. If that's, medium to short on the finish, and maybe that's what you're calling dry. I would say I still get it in my mouth. Like my mouth is coated, but the finish just kind of, it goes away, which it's like, again, scary because it's like, okay, well, we're ready for more.
It doesn't linger, so you don't realize.
But that's the thing. I think that honey note that I get on all of these things so far. I mean, I think it's that's the kind of the opening or the salutation, if you will, that kind of says, hey, come on in, and it's not intrusive. It's and it's even more inviting. I mean, once it goes all the way through, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll take more of that because there was nothing unpleasant about the visit.
I like that. That's good. It's inviting.
This is, at 114, I mean, you could definitely, and most of it, so here's what I would say, I shouldn't say most, a lot of single barrels at, 100 and, mid-teens proof or above, it's, you might get something attractive on the front, but then it's kind of overpowering all the way through. And there's nothing about this in any fashion that's overpowering. If you're like, hey, I've never tried whiskey before, or bourbon, what do you set me up? I don't know that I would definitely, I don't know if I'd push this in front of them. It may scare them a little bit, but if it's like, hey, I'm looking to try something that, maybe I didn't like something with a big, heavy, extra rye punch on the back end. I mean, this doesn't have that. I mean, it's like, everything is very clean and crisp and all the way through. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, we actually did a single barrel last year, 2020, to raise money for the hospitality employees in Memphis. And one of the barrels was 120 proof. It did not drink like 120 proof.
It's like you're scratching your head. It's like, I don't know if I can put this out there or not. This could hurt somebody.
Oh, it was so good.
Well, I mean, that's the fun thing. I mean, and I think the interesting, yourself and others, in the industry, I mean, you're really getting to a point to where you're putting, the ingredients together that are really able to deliver a high proof, pleasant experience versus, if you go to the Tennessee days, like where I'm from, right? I mean, if you want high proof, you get moonshine. Guess what?
Yes.
It smells like shit. Well, it smells like corn. It tastes like shit and it burns like hell.
Yes.
Sorry about the language, but I mean, but that's what you get, right? And there you go. And now, I mean, as a craft, and that's kind of where I was talking earlier in the, when we started, is going from craft to to a mature, back to a craft, and kind of what you're doing is, I think it's I think it's just you got some good stuff. I can't wait to taste what you put in the barrel.
Yeah, exactly. Me either.
We just sampled the 4-year-old Tennessee,
nice.
and it is very nice.
Now you're just bragging.
We were just excited. We were hoping to release our Tennessee whiskey this year because it's 4 years old. Like I said, I've always told everyone the barrel's gonna tell me when it's ready, and I was very, very pleased with it when we tasted it not that long ago. I'm so excited to see what one more year does, because we kind of got forced into pushing it a year. We ran out of warehouse space and we're shut down for about a year. So we are delaying the release to try and bridge that gap. After tasting it at 4 years, I cannot wait to see what one more year will do to it.
Nice.
That's exciting. Yeah, that's awesome that you, you get to see it right from the floor up. So,
Yep.
And the other cool thing is, you've got a story behind it, right? I mean, not only your story, but the story behind the label. Yep. It's not like what labels are on the shelf. I'll take that one. And what's the story? Let me go and build it up and make something of it. You've got some family history there. That's, it's really awesome. All right. So we may be over allotted on time. So I hope we have a minute to go through the hot toddy. I'm sorry, the Memphis Toddy.
Everyone calls it the hot toddy. It's fine.
I know. It's like, well, and after I've already had not 4 glasses, but 4 samples, it just kind of rolls off the tongue. But Memphis Toddy, I can roll it. It'll roll with it. So you want to, and if we're over allowed, you let us know and you can tamper us down. So. Because if that's the case, I'll go back through all 4 of them. And we'll just keep going. No, just kidding. And you can tell the story, but this was the Memphis Toddy was kind of the old family recipe just to set the stage, and this is like hey, we're going to rekindle this brand with this bottle, and if you want to, depending on how much time you got, you can tell the story or not, but. I'd like to get your take on, hey, we're going to redo this, and how did that go, and how did you remake it?
Yeah, so I guess it was in 2013 when they discovered that bottle of Dominick Toddy that was still wax sealed, and decided to crack it open and see what it was, because from what we can tell, we cannot find any records of this product as far as recipes go or anything. We just have old advertisements. In old ledgers that definitely look like they have ingredients that would go into this product, but they cracked it open. I believe someone actually tried it. I did not. This liquid is black.
How old do you think the bottle was?
It was before Prohibition.
Oh, wow.
Because like I said,
90 years, right?
Yeah, pushing 100 years by the time they find this bottle. So I'm not touching it, but someone did. He's still alive, so he, it must be fine. But they decided to send that liquid to a lab in California to have it analyzed to see if we can figure out what roughly the composition was. And based on that analysis, we're able to come up with a list of botanicals. We could tell it was a bourbon base, and they found, the botanicals that went into it. And kind of off of that analysis we just started going and started doing just batch after batch, using someone else out in California to kind of help us with that development as well. And finally, and I came in to the team kind of in the middle of the process. So they had done a lot of the legwork, and I just had to kind of fine tune it and clean it up. But it was, how much cinnamon do you do? And so we do 3 different batches, and one would be nothing but cinnamon. So we'd veto it and have to pick one of the other ones. It was definitely fun trying to hone in on it, because we really didn't have anything to base it off of. Not really. You couldn't just sample the old liquid and be like, oh, nope, we're not quite there yet. There was no taste comparison. So it was one of those, like, we want to pay respect to that product, but we can only do that to a certain extent. Plus, the consumer's palate and the consumer's desire for products is also very, very different than it was
Definitely different. Yeah.
before Prohibition. So it's like, okay, well, we need to develop a product that actually appeals to today's consumer. And so for us, we, in the end, just wanted to come up with a super drinkable cocktail in a bottle, basically. To where the toddy, yes, you can mix it with things. We've seen bars have so much fun make tiki cocktails with it.
So
That's a huge thing.
we didn't
see that. We didn't see that coming. We didn't realize tiki bars were going to enjoy the toddy. But for us, ultimately, we just wanted something you could pour into a glass, throw a cube into it, or heat it up, and that's all you had to do. So that's kind of where that product came from. And it's one of those things most people are very standoffish when they first hear about it and you list all the ingredients. But as soon as they taste it, they go buy a bottle. So
Very cool. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I just popped the bottle and poured it, and I don't know, 12 inches away or so from the glass, and
you can smell it.
and I'm in a Glencairn, right? So I mean, but there's really no air moving per se that would be, but like just popping the bottle, I mean, it's like just a gush of just the aromatics that come out of that thing. I'm like, man, we're a month or two too late for this one. I mean, this is if you're like a spiced punch person, like this is spice punch all day long. I mean, that's yeah.
Yeah, for us, we say toddy season starts with the beginning of football.
Okay.
College football, it's fall, and then through Christmas, and even January, December, just because cold months, you want something that'll warm you up. But no, I love when we make toddy because the entire distillery just smells like cinnamon and clove and all these spices.
That's fun.
As I'm tasting this, so you said something earlier, right? So you walked into the brewery and you got the smell and you're like, oh, this is off-putting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me back up. You went to the distillery as a teenager. Mm-hmm. And you said that the smell was so off-putting, and it's interesting, right? And if you think about our taste buds and and how we taste and how we go, some people sometimes you'll like apricots. We were on last night with a dude, and man, he found apricots in something, or apricots where I'm from originally, and I'm like, I can never ever, like, I'm gonna go buy apricots and I'm gonna eat every damn one that's in the bag just so I can know, because to me they taste like nothing. So maybe that means that, I mean, I'm saying it's I get the texture, but I don't get a lot of like flavor out of an apricot. And maybe that's because I'm buying them, at the store. Maybe I need to go and source it locally.
He said you get them off of the Delta vegan meal is what he said.
Oh yeah, he did say, the Delta vegan meal, because you get the most food with that one. That's good over a glass. I mean, I would definitely pour that over a cube and go after it. But there's so is it cardamom that I'm smelling? Maybe?
Yes. So I'm always amazed at how easily people pick up cardamom. I had very little exposure until we had to make the toddy. But yeah, it's cinnamon, cardamom, clove, black pepper, as well as orange, lemon, and grapefruit.
Nice.
I mean, now that you've labeled, so I got the grapefruit. I got the orange. I got the lemon. I didn't get the grapefruit, but I'm getting it now because it's kind of the sourness of the grapefruit is muted.
Yep.
But the sweet part, like the pulp of the grapefruit, is you can taste it. Yeah, I mean, very pronounced now that you mention it. Like it's really, yeah.
Well, what's fun about the toddy is I've discovered at different temperatures, you get different flavors. So to me, at room temperature and even warmed up, the cinnamon and clove tend to take over everything.
Yep.
But once it starts chilling, I think the citrus starts to
take it over.
Yeah.
So this bottle, and are all these, what are these, 375s?
Yes.
Or is it that's a sample bottle?
That's we do bottle it in the 375.
Everything is 375?
We also do it in the 750. We did the 375 for two reasons. One, because we thought tailgating, Ole Miss, hottie to hottie. My family's going to disown me for saying that at this point.
Heard it here first.
But we thought it would appeal to the tailgating aspect of it.
Sure.
For that reason, but also because people were so unsure of the product as a whole, there's not another toddy on the market. So when you see it, you just don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not the cheapest product because it is labor intensive, all the ingredients that go into it. And so that pint kind of allows it to be a little more approachable from a price standpoint and also from just a volume standpoint.
Yep.
You're a little more willing to take a gamble on a pint than you are a 750.
So I just opened this. So do I have to chug it all tonight, or how long is it going to? What's the shelf life? Because I didn't see a proof point. I know, but I mean, I could if we need to. I can chug it right now. No, I'm just kidding. Well, actually, I'm not kidding.
Most people, once they open it, it goes pretty quickly.
Yeah, right. So, but I didn't see a proof point on it. So is it kind of like a liqueur or such that you put it in the fridge and it's gonna hold up?
So it's 60 proof.
Yeah. So.
But there is a lot of sugar in there, and we do use actual botanicals as well. So over time, whether it's room temperature or in the fridge, it will start to settle. You will start to see things come out of suspension. And all you have to do is just shake it.
Yeah.
Just give it a really good shake.
But it's 60 proof. I mean, it holds up pretty much forever, right? I mean, it's like vermouth and
as long as you're,
much less. So
as long as soon as you start to see that sediment, that stuff come out, just shake it, because that's all it is. It's the sugar that's just wanting to come out of suspension, and it's those botanicals.
I still want to go into like the "Shake It Off" song right now, but I'm not going to. Shake it off, shake it.
No,
you brought it up.
I did. That's fair.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is good. And I can see again, like this is a tiki drink or a twizzle or a swizzle. Excuse me. I keep saying swizzle. Like this is completely.
Well, it's made with toddy, so it's a twizzle.
Yeah,
Twizzle.
Exactly. A twizzle.
A thing.
Hey, trademark. All right. We've kept you've stayed on with us and been too nice for us. We can't let you go yet, though. We got a few more questions. Well, hold on. First off, is there anything? Did we miss anything? I'm actually going to go back to. I'm going to have these the straight rye and the wheat while we're talking to do a little comparison. So, what did we miss about Old Dominic and Alex Castle?
With Old Dominic, I think we hit everything. We're hoping to be able to reopen our doors because, of course, the pandemic, we stopped full tours and tastings for quite a while. We've resumed curated tastings, so you can still come and do a tasting. But we're hoping to be able to actually open the doors and open production up to the public in April. We feel like we should be in a good place at that point where we can do that without putting the production staff at risk or anything like that. So hopefully we'll be a little more back to normal by then.
Cool.
And we've got, hopefully to kind of make it worth it and make up for 2020, we've got some really fun distillery only releases that will scatter throughout the year under the R&D product line that we have. Kind of an extension from all the cookies bourbon that we released in 2020.
I heard that was really good.
So there's a 2.0. It's at some point this year. So
I guess I got to get to Memphis. Eh?
Yep. Because it was a really popular product, and it was one of my favorites. So the brewery made that beer again. So we took the barrel back again.
So before you jump from that, and you answer my question, I just want to get it on the record. So barrel finished, yes or no?
Barrel finished. So what it is, we gave barrels to a brewery. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of fun, created a bunch of crazy beers and put in the barrels, and asked me when it was time to dump those barrels, asked me if I wanted them back. I'm not huge on barrel finished bourbons, but sure, let's try it. And because they let me sample all the cookies beer, and it was so good. I was like, we got to try this. We got to see if it's going to work. And it did. So we put our fueling station bourbon back in those barrels, and all the cookies was only in there for 2 weeks, and it picked up all of those oatmeal raisin cookie notes.
Oh wow!
Then we have another one that
You thinking about you going to go a little longer next time, or you gonna stick with that time frame?
So we're gonna see, because they changed the recipe a little bit on the second round, and so it's a little more raisin and a little more cinnamon than the previous batch, because we actually just tried it at the 1 week mark, and it is absolutely picking those up. So we'll evaluate it at the 2 week mark and see if we've hit the sweet spot. Really, what I would love is to have 2 barrels going at one time, so that we could do one at 2 weeks and then do one longer. But they're just not producing that much. So we'll play that one by ear. But we also have a coffee infused chocolate stout barrel. So we've got some of that going for this year. And then I'll just getting back out in the market. We launched our gin in March of 2020. So it didn't really get much of a launch.
Right.
So that's
you find it rumbling around the liquor store kind of thing, right?
Yes. So that's our focus this spring, is to give our gin the launch that it deserves.
So you are a fan of finished bourbons then, or finished whiskeys?
I am. They're done well. I am.
Cool.
All right. So I know Dan's got he's got some Memphis questions for you. These are rapid fire.
I don't have many questions, Kyle. It was mainly like, Memphis is known for barbecue, right? So where are you sending everybody that comes into town?
Dan, she's a vegetarian.
Oh, great. She's still going to send them somewhere.
Oh yeah, I still have to have recommendations.
Yeah.
No, thankfully I am not a vegetarian. So it depends on what you want, but my go-to is Central Barbecue. They have amazing ribs. Their wings are delicious. Their smoked turkey is the best in the city. So that's my go-to, but one and only barbecue is pretty good too.
Oh, nice. There you go. Perfect. Thank you for saying that.
So is there any music going on down there right now?
Oh Lord, no.
No, so everything's shut down pretty much, right?
I think some of the Beale Street bars are finally allowed to do live music, but that's just recently been allowed to restart. And like I know Memphis in May, they've already announced that the Beale Street Music Festival is not happening in 2021. So still not a whole lot of live music going.
So Lexington, Kentucky to Memphis, Tennessee. And you can answer dishonestly or honestly, it's your choice. But I mean, are you like, hey, I can get into this, or is it like culture shock and I mean, Lexington, Memphis, maybe similar kind of similar cities, but
both cities have that southern feel to it.
Yeah.
It was a little weird getting to Memphis, because Memphis moves very slow with a lot of things. So we left Lexington with, I don't know how many breweries they had, because my husband and I are craft beer drinkers. And so I don't even, tons of breweries. Plus we actually are originally from Cincinnati. So ton of breweries in Cincinnati. And we get to Memphis. Memphis is a very large city. Mm-hmm. And there were like 3 or 4 breweries, and that was it.
Wow.
So it was a little shocking to see just how, I almost hate to say far behind Memphis was, but in a way that is how it is. It moves so slow that it sometimes feels like it's behind the times. But that also means that we've been able to watch it grow, because in the 5 years that we've been here, I think we've more than doubled the number of breweries in the city.
Cool.
Yeah, nice.
Cool.
So we got to experience the growth in Lexington of that city and really see it come into its own. And I really do feel like we've been able to do that same thing in Memphis. And it's, I'm Kentucky by birth, but I'm Tennessean by choice at this point.
I see you got a big M, go blue behind you. So
that is my husband's. He grew up in Toledo, and so he's a Michigan football fan, and he insists on hanging the flag.
Gotcha.
Nice.
So everybody can actually wear blue. I mean, you can wear blue. He can wear blue. Memphis is blue. It may be a different shade, but it's
unfortunately, the Memphis blue is Memphis blue is very similar to Kentucky blue, which is good, because for the first 4 years, I refused to wear anything that said Kentucky, because they were still very, very angry at Coach Calipari.
Oh yeah, football,
Yes.
basketball, yeah. Well, look at them this year. This may be the first time Kentucky has been unranked in ever. Ever.
I'm pretending that the basketball season just doesn't happen this year.
Alex, you've been so generous with your time, and thanks for sharing with us. I mean, I could sit around and talk all night, but I'm sure you got better stuff to do than talk to us. So, what I would say is, if you haven't tried Old Dominic Hooling Station and that damn hottie toddy,
Memphis Toddy.
I know. Yeah, hottie toddy, Memphis Toddy. I know. Now she got me confused with the whole. Anyway, the Memphis Toddy, it's outstanding. I got some recommendations for my kinfolk up in East Tennessee. We've got a new punch coming for the holidays for sure. And there's nothing that I've had that I wouldn't drink again or buy for a friend. So Valentine's Day is coming up. Buy your significant other a good drink, right?
There you go.
Yeah, Alex, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers.
This is Alex Castle, Master Distiller at Old Dominic Distillery in Memphis, Tennessee, and you're listening to Birdies and Bourbon.